Welcome to GGG Insights, a program dedicated to issues affecting the town of East Hampton and its residents. Today we have two guests with us. One is Larry Cantwell, the town supervisor, and the other is Alex Walter, the executive assistant to the town supervisor. Larry is going to be not running for office this year, so we think he's really going to have no problem discussing all the problems that he never wants to talk about if he's going to run. But first, Alex, we all know about Larry, and he's been village administrator for many years. He's run for office. You're the mystery man. What do you do, and what's your background?
Well, gee, I'd never been called a mystery man before, but I'd love to tell you. I came from Albany, New York. That's where I grew up. Went to college in Oswego, New York, and met my wife there. I think most people know the DeCristofaro family in East Hampton. I married Debbie. And she got a job right away in East Hampton teaching school. So since she had a job and I didn't right after college, I came here, 1972.
Now, you were also the president of South Fork Golf Club, and I know you had some assistants sometimes. How'd you find these suckers, to help you out?
Well, actually, I didn't pick them. They got elected.
Oh,
I had to deal with whoever I got.
Oh, so you didn't get the...
Yeah.
Okay.
But actually, Larry and I met each other before that. I was working in a local insurance agency, and we insured the village of East Hampton, and Larry was the administrator for the village. So at least once a year, a couple of times prior to the renewal of the policy, which was a big account for our agency, I'd sit down with Larry, get told what we should be covering the village for, and what we should be charging the village.
Now, how'd you get Alex involved? How'd you reel him into this, Larry?
To come to work in the supervisor's office?
Right.
Well, Alex and I have been friends for some time, and I gained a lot of respect for Alex over the years. But both when I worked in the village and he was in the insurance business, and he was doing business with the village. I always liked the way he handled the account and was professional about what he did. Then, we've been playing golf together for many years at South Fork Country Club. We both served on the South Fork Country Club board together, where we had to deal with, a number of different issues as you would at a private club. And, Alex retired before, Alex had been retired and was serving on the Zoning Board of Appeals as chairman of the Zoning Board just before I became a supervisor, and was well regarded and did a great job as chairman. And I needed an administrative assistant, and I asked Alice, if that was something he would be interested in.
Well, this sort of leads us into this whole concept of town manager that's been bandied around. If you go back and look at New York State law, it seems that the chief executive officer of a town is not the supervisor, it's the town board, which makes it a little clumsy because they're also the chief legislators, and the supervisor technically is the chairman of the board meetings, and I guess the chief financial officer. But realistically, in the town of East Hampton, and I think probably most other towns, it sort of evolved where the supervisor really is the chief executive officer. Is that pretty correct, Larry?
I think that's correct. The supervisor's role, really, if I had to describe it, it's got a lot of different parts to it. There's the legislative component, right. Which is to preside at the meetings and work with the board members and develop legislation and work with various committees and attorneys and others and the community, trying to improve upon the laws that we have or change them to suit certain issues which arise from time to time. And keep the board members in communication. That's a big part of what we try to do is, most of the workload ends up going through the supervisor's office. Right. It's natural. Outside agencies contact the supervisor's office. Constituents often, come through the supervisor's office. So, so there's the legislative component. There's the administrative component, which is significant. All the department heads tend to report to the supervisor. Issues that arise on day-to-day where they need advice or just, a day-to-day operating decision, they come, through the supervisor's office.
Oh, one thing I would add, by the way, for those who are not familiar with the town's governing operations, Each of the councilmen also are a liaison to a few departments.
Yes.
And
yeah.
could you explain how that works? Because that's always a little bit amorphous.
Well, you know, we create committees of the board. So each board member is a committee of a chair of a particular committee. Very often that relates to either a citizens committee that they're a liaison to, or it could be liaison to a particular department. You know, for example, Peter Van Squack, you know, is liaison to the Parks Department, you know, and Highway. So you know, those department heads have someone to go to, you know, as they wish. But very often the supervisor's office is involved, you know, in one way, you know, or another. I mean, the other component of the supervisor's office really is, you know, dealing with the press and dealing with, you know, outside agencies. You know, often, you know, those contacts are made, you know, through the supervisor.
No,
So there's a lot going on there.
I know there's a lot going on. I guess the League of Women Voters especially, and also the GGG, has advocated that there be a town administrator to basically be the day-to-day administrative officer of the town, so that the supervisor can do all the other things that he or she is supposed to be doing. And likewise, the town board members be so involved with the myriad of things. And as any of us know who have gotten to know any of the town board members, it's really not a 9-to-5 job. I mean, they're meeting people all the time and on various committee matters and department matters and so forth. But how have you set up this executive assistant to the supervisor, and how has it worked in practice? And what do you have to tell us going forward, how this should be set up? Now you had a very unusual background because you were the chief administrator of the village, so you had more administrative background than most people would come to a supervisor role with.
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Alex address that in a second, but you know, there's more than one way to skin this cat, really, if you will.
Sure.
You know, when I first got elected, and Alex King was nice enough to come to work, you know, for the town in the supervisor's office, you know, we reestablished monthly department head meetings. So every month we have an agenda, we sit down with all the department heads at one time, and we go through organizational issues and operational issues, trying to keep the town, you know, running smoothly. And at that first meeting, I said to all the department heads, I said, you know, when you speak with Alex, or Alex speaks with you, he's speaking for me. You know, his voice is my voice. So, you know, because you've got to be able to delegate, you know, authority and responsibility. And
So
Alex,
you've delegated to Alex the interface with the department heads on the
very often. Look, you know, during the course of a day, I mean, Alex would tell you, I mean, I might be in meetings all day long. You know,
that was what we always
meeting with
talked
an
about,
individual, meeting with a constituent, going to a town board meeting, a committee meeting, out in the community, meeting with a community group, or attending a function. And Alex is there, you know, on a day-to-day basis, and department heads look to him for guidance and leadership.
Alex, how does this work? I mean, I'm the head of the Parks Department, we'll say. Would I generally pick up the phone if I have a problem and call you, or call Larry, or call whoever the town liaison on the board is? Or
What I've found...
It's 9 o'clock, I got a problem.
What I've found generally is the department heads, once Larry gave them the charge that in talking to me, I'm like talking to the supervisor, many department heads like that. They like not having to go to the supervisor with, you know, all their little problems. So they'll come to me. Now, many times this goes in reverse. Larry and I will talk about some issues and we need to get some things done, and I'll be the person who talks to the department head and says, you know, we need to get this project started. We need to get on a situation where a constituent is called and there's a particular problem in town. So I'll call the department head and say, look, we need to do this, 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 or this.
Alex, besides just liaisoning and coordinating with the department heads, do you have projects that you're assigned to oversee? Or
Well,
how does that work?
Well, day one, when I started working in, I believe it was May of 2014, we were on the verge of starting the downtown Montauk beach stabilization project. which you've heard a lot about over the
No,
years.
that seems to have gone very smoothly.
Well, yeah. So Larry said to me, you and I got to get this done. So we kind of figured out, what each of us were going to do to get it done, because we had documents that needed to be signed by property owners to give permission for this project to go ahead. We had to coordinate with the DEC and the Army Corps and the contractors along the way. So he said, you and I are going to do this project, and we figured out how we were going to do it. So I've been intimately involved in that project from day one for me. I mean, I'm appreciative to Larry that he's allowed me into almost every part of what he does on a daily basis, so that I've learned a lot about town government, from the top. And he's never been shy about, allowing me to be in any type of meeting that I want to be in. Sometimes he tells me I have to be in, which is fine, because I enjoy the learning process, and I've learned a lot about town government. We're in the process of trying to come up with a design for the new town hall. When I say new town hall, I'm talking about the old building that's there, which is uninhabitable. Take that down and build a new town hall for the people that are basically displaced around town at 300, at Bluff Road in Amagansett, and come up with a design and the construction within a cost that the town board will ultimately approve. So I've been involved with that since almost day one.
Well, now, you guys have had a very unique background. You've known each other for many, many years. When, Alex, you were the president of South Fork, Larry was in charge of one of the major renovation projects for the golf course.
He was the Greens chairman.
He was the Greens chairman. He was there every morning. Yep. And one of the things that I think some of us on the outside looking in have felt that when you have a project in town, whatever, obviously a good-sized project, you really need somebody who, when they walk into their office every day, the first thing on their agenda is following up with the 10 people who didn't show up today on that project. And I think one of the things that, again, for the people outside looking in, have always felt that a town administrator or town manager would be the person alone or together with some particular department head who would fill that function. Because as you said, in fact, you said, Larry, the press is calling, there's a meeting you're attending, and yet if you don't have somebody on a daily basis who calls up the guy who doesn't show up, the project grinds to a halt. And how is this, how do you think this could work going forward? I mean, not every supervisor is going to have a person that they've known for their entire life, basically, and work together with. How do we institutionalize some of this?
Well, look, I think it should be institutionalized. I mean, I've said that many times. I've attended forums about this. I spoke about the need for that position to be established and filled. I haven't done it, but I do think it should be done. I feel strongly about it, and more so now, having served as supervisor for the past 3 years, I'm even more convinced that the town should have a town manager. Now, people, why? Because the town needs that kind of management oversight structure. And you're right, a lot of it is nuts and bolts. Somebody's got to stir the pot. Somebody's got to keep things attached. Somebody's got to coordinate. I mean, very often we're involved in issues that relate to multiple departments or multiple department heads. Every one of them has to be called in. Everyone has to be coordinated with. And if you don't have, someone who's got some, strong administrative ability like Alex has, the operation is going to suffer. And truthfully, I think that most of the departments would support that concept, because I think they understand the need for careful coordination.
Oh, sure. It prevents them from walking in the wrong direction and being called out for it. I mean, quite frankly.
Sometimes you need support and guidance and encouragement, and I think that's a big part of what a town manager could do.
Now, I guess this all comes down to money, ultimately, and we've heard many people who you and I know personally, some of whom in fact, all of whom we like personally, are really concerned that this would be another cost in the town that would never be recouped. And my own feeling is it would create dramatic savings over time as that person, be it he or she, gets used to the job and the town gets used to that person. In your budget for the next year, are you going to have a line item for town administrator, town manager, something like that? That's what it really comes down to. Everybody says, we haven't got the money for it.
No, I want to do that. I want that to be available to the next supervisor and town board so they can make a decision. I want to provide the funding for it in the budget, and then they can decide whether or not that's an organizational structure that they would like to have. But so, depending upon the budget itself, and
Sure.
There's a lot that goes into the budget in terms of meeting the tax cap and availability of funds and those kinds of things. It is something that I would like to include in the budget and get the town board to approve. So the next supervisor and the next town board that takes office in January, the funding would be available if they want to take advantage of it.
I don't want to put you into a box, but what do you think that line should be? Should it be 60,000, 180,000,
Well,
240,000? I mean,
It's going to be a lot more than what Alex gets paid.
I thought Alex said he was overpaid. He was,
Well,
everybody thought once you got Alex that you drove one of the best bargains in the world, and you must have some really scandalous movie about Alex doing something.
Alex,
Is there a scandalous movie in your background?
look, when I took office, there was no budget whatsoever for an
Right.
administrative
I know
assistant.
that.
The supervisor's budget included the supervisor and one, secretary or assistant. And Colleen, that works in my office, does a great job, at that. But there was no other, budget item for it. But I knew a supervisor, by him or herself, can't carry out all the duties and responsibilities of that office without some administrative help.
Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, I mean, for example, Colleen is great, but she's not in the position to get in her car, drive over to Montauk, and spend 6 hours there looking over the project. That just doesn't happen.
Well, not just that, but you got to have somebody that anchors the office, and
right.
Colleen does a terrific job
Exactly.
of doing that, and her presence there every day is really important. The point I wanted to make is a lot of people don't realize, Alice came to work for the town for $30,000 a year. Okay, because that was all I could squeeze out, of the overall budget in order to bring him to office. I mean, Alex basically donates,
He donates some dramatic portion.
he basically is making a contribution to the town.
I know.
Given Alex is in the office, he's the first one in our office. He's there at 7 or 7:30 every morning, and he's usually the last one to
Well,
leave.
the reason for that, Larry, is he makes so little he can't afford to heat his house, so he comes there where it's
No,
warm.
I-
He's
no.
even putting his head. I noticed.
Or I'm just a real bad negotiator.
It's exactly.
No, I think this is important.
I think the town should appreciate exactly what you're saying.
I really want
If you
to
wanna
say,
be-
I mean, I really want to say this. I mean, I'm deeply, with the community, we should be deeply grateful for Alex, a talented individual who's basically giving his time to the community, and has been an incredible help to me. I couldn't do what we do in our office to the extent that we're successful at it without Alex's help.
Larry, have you thought through if there were, we'll call it a town administrator, so it's a somewhat less loaded term than town manager. If there were a town administrator next year or the year after, what kind of support do they need? I mean, do they need secretarial help? Do they need?
Well,
an assistant?
they might need one person in their office, but I don't think they would need any more than that. And the truth is, that would be a position that should be very professional. It should be non-political, non-partisan. It should be professional. It should provide, administrative oversight to the operations of the town. And we have some talented people working for us in town government. I mean, there really are.
Oh.
There are some department heads there that really do an outstanding job. We wouldn't necessarily even have to bring someone in from the outside. I wouldn't preclude that because I think we want to get the best individual that we can. But there are some department heads that would be fully capable of learning that role and bringing ability to that role and doing a good job with it.
Well, there's a lot of nuances in civil service law and unions, contracts, as we all know. Is there anything that would prevent Miss X who's now the head of the XYZ department, from moving over and being in that role if she had all the
No.
abilities? So at that level,
Yeah,
you're
it's
not hamstrung by.
It would be an appointed position.
Okay.
Yeah. It might have a term, might not have a term, might have some kind of a contractual relationship with the town so that, you know, both that individual and the town have some protection, but both in terms of being able to terminate the relationship if it didn't work out, as well as providing some protection to the person that holds it. But I'd be interested in Alex's view
Yeah,
on
so would
on
I.
this
I mean,
question.
Yeah, in the time that I've spent with Larry learning, and I'd never been involved in government other than my 4 years on the ZBA. So I really was going in with my eyes wide open, not knowing what to expect.
Otherwise, you wouldn't have taken the job.
Well, no, that's not true.
Especially with Larry.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why I took the job. I happened to be retired for about 10 years, and I wasn't looking to go back to work, but I had an interest in, you know, government. I had a political interest at one point, but I didn't take it any further than that. And when Larry got elected to the supervisor's position, he touched on it a little bit with me. What do you think? And you know, it didn't really go anywhere. And then it kind of gained some speed after Larry had been in the job for 3 months or so.
Oh, I didn't realize. I thought you, for some reason, I
No,
thought you
it wasn't-
started. I
wasn't
thought
the
you
first
started.
day.
Oh,
No, I
okay.
think I believe, and he could answer this question better than I, but I think he wanted to see, you know, what the supervisor's job entailed. And I think he knew, you know, really knew what that entailed, but I think he had to see what
the
happens
flow
on a
was, yeah.
daily basis there, because quite frankly, we're very open to the public, as I think the public has realized. So we take all people that want to come and have a meeting in the supervisor's office. Nobody gets turned away. No phone calls get turned away. As a matter of fact, you know, it was pretty clear that, you know, if there were any emails or phone calls in any given day, we were to return those phone calls or emails, either that day or the next, as whatever was applicable. So I think he needed to find out, you know,
What the flow was.
Yeah, what the flow was. And and when he decided to do it, he called me up and we sat down, and I negotiated poorly and ended up in the job. But I think in the time that I've been there, I can clearly see the need for the administrator and or the town manager, whatever you want to call it. I think there's so many things that go on. In my opinion only, I believe that the supervisor has to look at a bigger picture every day with regard to the town's future, what's legislatively, what can be done, what are the issues today, what do I have to deal with? And for Larry, basically it's a 24/7 job, because not only the time that he spends in the office, but the time he's at home, he's on his cell phone in the morning as soon as he gets up until he goes to bed at night.
Oh, I've gotten calls and emails from Larry at ridiculous times.
It's impossible for him to say, okay, you know, I'll get a call from someone who there's a pothole, you know, on the side of the road, and you know, how are we going to deal with this? And that's not something that the supervisor should be dealing with. There should be somebody there to take care of that situation, where, you know, a simple call to the correct department head would correct a situation that a constituent's concerned about.
If Larry wasn't Larry, and he was just another person who didn't have the background of having been a town administrator,
Right.
what other things do you think that this person in this new position should be doing that you're not doing right now because of Larry's own background?
Well,
that's a hard question.
Yeah, no, I know. One of my concerns when I came to work was, you know, I was going to be an administrative assistant to the consummate, you know, administrator. You know, so I said, geez, how's that going to work out? And one of the
Well,
things,
did you practice your Xeroxing and typing skills?
yeah, one of the things we talked about originally was, look, I mean, we've been good friends for a long time. Now I'm going to come to work for you, you know, and let's not allow this to come between our friendship, and it really hasn't. It's
Amazing.
And it's been great. But
Well,
there's certain things, Arthur, that inevitably, in any operation, fall through the cracks.
Sure.
Because there isn't someone there that's following every board initiative.
There are too many.
And isn't following each department as to what they're doing and what their responsibilities are. I mean, we have permits with other agencies, and all those permits have to be renewed. And sometimes one gets, one will fall through the crack, and we don't want that to happen. But if there's somebody in a manager's job that is responsible for making sure that each department head is on top of everything he's doing and doing what he needs to do, it can only help the operation of the town. And there can be some efficiencies with it too. So a town manager has to be, it's a position where you not only have to, look at the day-to-day operations, but it has to have a financial background too that can be very helpful with the budget. Now, nobody walked into the supervisor's job with more credentials than Larry did,
Right.
I believe, from an operational point of view and a financial point of view. That's pretty unusual that you get somebody, because usually there's a learning curve. Well, there was no learning curve with Larry because he had done it all for the village, and he had a grasp of every part of government.
So what you're saying...
But when you don't get that, okay, that town manager is the key person to an incoming supervisor or town board members that can get them up to speed as quickly as
So you
possible.
want somebody with financial background,
Absolutely.
Administrative background, obviously interacting with
You know,
human relations.
Some
and stuff like
HR background.
that.
Yeah.
So there's really...
It's a position, the qualifications have to be there, and it doesn't come necessarily cheaply.
Oh, no, I know it doesn't. That's what I was...
But I think it's a critical component.
Okay. Now, we're wrapping up this segment, but we have another one coming right up. So that's why we're all going to have the same clothing on.
Okay.
But the next segment, we'd like to focus on 2 or 3 of the things you think worked out well, maybe why they worked out well, 2 or 3 of the things you hoped to get done you haven't had a chance to do yet, and some things that you wish you never got involved with. I want to thank you all for watching, and thank Alex, and thank Larry, and we hope you tune in for the second segment. I think this is really great.